Hello, hello. Welcome back to Novelytic. My name is Drew, and for today, we're making a comeback with a book haul. So I've been on a bit of a hiatus between job obligations, health, mental and physical health, grad school. There were just so many things going on, so I had to take a step back from booktube. But I'm back, and I figured the best way to bring us back is with a book haul because I can't help myself. Also, I would really appreciate it if you'd click that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you so please. And without further ado, let's first start with books that I have received from book boxes. These first two books were my choices for Book of the Month. My first pick was Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I believe this is her debut. I am so excited to read this. It is a Greek myth retelling that follows Ariadne, who is, I believe she's the princess of Crete. Yes, Ariadne is the princess of Crete, and she is most well known for her assistance to Theseus in the Theseus and Minotaur myth. However, I'm very curious because this is a feminist retelling, and I've heard nothing but great things. The next book is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I believe that's how you say his name. I should know this because, you know, this has been pretty hyped on BookTube, but anyway, The Maidens, which is a thriller. And I'm not generally a person for thrillers, but this seemed so cool. It takes place at a college or a university, and it's a spellbinding tale of psychological suspense, weaving together Greek mythology, murder, and obsession. That's all I need to know. But I believe it follows a professor and a student who believes that that professor is guilty of murder. That's all I want to know. I mean, it's a thriller. I want to go in blind, right? These next two books I received from my Fairly Loot box, the first being The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This follows a girl named Kiva who is a survivor. She's trying to survive, and the only thing that's really driving her forward is her family, or the hope of her family. But then she receives a message saying that she cannot let the rebel queen die, and therefore ensues a series of tasks. So this seems interesting. I remember seeing the cover, but it wasn't on my radar. It sounds totally up my alley. And again, Fairy Loot is just stunning covers, and I mean, look at that. It's so shiny. The final Fairy Loot book is my most anticipated release of the year, and that is Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. First off, such a stunning foiled cover with the title on the side. Sprayed edges, stencil edges there, and then when you open it up, it's just so beautiful. I couldn't have asked for, I just could not wait for this book. But Witches Steeped in Gold is a fantasy that follows two women, one of which who has been living her life in a cell and wants to escape. She has been exiled, but she's working towards her freedom. The other main character we follow is the daughter of the self-appointed ruler who is trying to take down her reign because she does not want to die for her mother. It sounds amazing. It's Jamaican-inspired fantasy. The premise of it just sounds so intriguing, and I am so happy that I finally have my hands on a copy. Expect this to be in a wrap up real soon because I need to read it ASAP. These next three books are all works of non-fiction. First being Nobody's Looking at You by Janet Malcolm, which is a collection of essays. Unfortunately, Janet Malcolm did pass away not too long ago, within the past week or so. But I purchased this a while back, and I really want to get more into her writing. I have a copy of 41 False Starts, which I read part of, but I haven't read in its entirety, but I just want to read more of Janet Malcolm's writing. The next book is in a similar vein as the Greek myth, and that is The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. Many of you might be aware of the hero's journey, or the cycle of the hero's journey. This is where it came from, and again, I find that really intriguing in literature and how so many works follow this particular formula. But I'm doing my little project with different myths and folklore around the world, and I figured this is necessary reading. Lastly, I have The Lady and Her Monsters, A Tale of Dissections, Real Life Dr. Frankenstein, and the creation of Mary Shelley's masterpiece. So, and it's by Roseanne Montillo, So I was supposed to read Frankenstein in high school and I didn't do it. But I do want to read it now, and when I saw this, I found this would be great to pair up together because I love reading literary analysis, and it's kind of interesting seeing what other people have to say about that. And I mean, Frankenstein was a monumental piece of literature. Next, I have a few works of poetry, the first being Byron's poems. This is a super cool copy. It's definitely old and very fragile, has the gilded edges. I found this at a friend's used bookshop and I couldn't say no. And I find Byron a fascinatingly weird character. I've read Don Juan by him back in college and wanted to get more into his poetry. And apparently in the previous book, in The Lady and Her Monsters, I guess Shelley had some cahoots with Byron? I don't know, but call me intrigued. The next work of poetry is Enemies of Time by Donald Lev. Unfortunately, Donald Lev passed away a few years ago. I believe it was towards the end of 2018. He was a very nice guy. He often frequented open mics I used to go to in Woodstock, New York, and a friend of mine gave me a copy in memoriam. And lastly, I have Take Me With You by Andrea Gibson. I love Andrea Gibson's poetry. However, this one is a little bit different. It reflects on life, but it looks more like Insta poetry, kind of like Instagram poetry, which is not really what I'm used to from Gibson, but it seems interesting. It has actually like very large font and illustrations. It should be a quick read. Also, super cool on pages. I don't know if you can see that. The next book is Chosen and the Beautiful, which is one of my other anticipated release of the year. It's by Niveau, which, if you don't know, I really love Niveau's writing. However, this is Niveau's debut novel, and it is a Great Gatsby retelling, and it follows Jordan Baker, who is the best friend of Daisy Buchanan in the original story of The Great Gatsby. I've actually already read this. Niveau really made a twist of the story by integrating magic and fantasy and really sticking to certain elements of the original. I will be unpacking my thoughts more on this soon, but for pure aesthetic purposes, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. It's so freaking pretty. The next book I hauled is Persuasion by Jane Austen, and this particular copy has an introduction by Uzma Jalaluddin, who wrote Aisha at Last, which was a Pride and Prejudice retelling that I read back in May. And this was the May book pick for Down Memory Jane, and I realized that I didn't have a copy of Persuasion. I did purchase another copy, but I specifically wanted the one with this introduction. Plus, again, I think this is a stunning cover. So Persuasion follows Anne Elliot, who is 27 and unmarried, which at that time kind of means you're like relegated to be a spinster for the rest of your life. But supposedly she was smitten with this one man, which her family was like, not really, like, no, don't do it. But then in the future he comes back and he is this well-established man in society, and it's about, can they reignite and rekindle that romance. I mean, I love the majority of what I've read of Jane. I love everything that I've read by Jane Austen so far, so I have no doubt that this is going to be an experience. The next book is The Third Witch by Rebecca Reisert. So this is a Macbeth reimagining where we follow one of the three witches, and I guess she's sort of an outcast with her sisters, so she tries to escape, and within escaping she ends up in the Macbeth household and sort of manipulates things to go along with the prophecy. And I love me a good retelling, especially Shakespeare retelling, and another one. Can't wait to pick this up. I have to reread Macbeth first though. I could do that. It's the shortest play. The next book I found at my local thrift shop, and it is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, which is a children's classic. I never read Alice in Wonderland. I actually hated it. Like the Disney movie as a kid. I was absolutely terrified. But I have heard that the book is very different. I mean, I love Alice in Wonderland now. Don't get me wrong. But I am very curious about the book because I've heard from some people that they did not like the book. And I'm wondering which category I fall into based on my previous experiences with the Disney movie. The next book I purchased at the recommendation of a colleague, and that is A Room with a View by E.M. Forster, which is more of a modern classic. It is a Victorian romance novel, which, although I'm not a fan of romance, I do like me a good Victorian romance. And it sort of seems to touch upon Lucy, who is the main character, who meets the Emersons, and she's like fascinated by them. And I think it's a tale of Lucy breaking away from the norm and sort of changing her beliefs and what her view is and her perspective of the world. I hope my colleague is good at recommending, because I can't wait to read this as well. The next book I found is Mark Twain's The Mysterious Stranger. Now, this is like, I believe, the final novel that he wrote. I don't know, I have to double check. I'm not sure if it was ever truly finished. But he worked on it periodically, and this I read once before via ebook, actually when I first discovered BookTube, and I found it fascinating. Like, it was definitely rough around the edges, but the morals and whatnot are really poignant and fascinating. And the one character, this stranger, has been referred to as like the devil or like Satan, or I think, what was the number 44, but it's definitely philosophical and a commentary on the human race and sort of the morals and values, and on the back of the book it says the moral sense of people. So I want to reread this. I want to leave lots of tabs because I had so many thoughts when I first read it, and again, I want to take a deeper dive into this. Plus, this copy is really weird. Like, there's nothing on the spine. The back is like this large font. I don't know. I'm excited to reread this. I think I've said I'm excited for all of these books. Can I be any more repetitive? And lastly, I have Candid by Voltaire, and this was translated by Lowell Bear. I never read this, but I believe, let's see, I'm gonna read the back for this one. So Candide is the story of a gentle man who, though pummeling and slapped in every direction by fate, clings desperately to the belief that he lives in the best of all possible worlds. On the surface a witty bantering tale, this 18th century classic is actually a savage satiric thrust at the philosophical optimism that proclaims that all disaster and human suffering is part of a benevolent cosmic plan. Seems to be a lot jam-packed in this tiny little book. Well, again, I found this at a used bookstore and I don't have a copy, so I figured, why not? Let's go for it. Alright, so here's this heavy, oh, I'm putting it down, I'm tried. This is my lovely book haul. I cannot wait to get these all up on my shelves. Let me know if any of these you are interested in reading, or if you've already read it and loved it or hate it. I would love to discuss it. Until next time, bye!